A naval mine is a self-contained explosive device placed in water to damage or destroy surface ships or submarines. Unlike depth charges, mines are deposited and left to wait until they are triggered by the approach of or contact with an enemy vessel. Naval mines can be used offensively to hamper enemy shipping movements or lock vessels into a harbor, or defensively to protect friendly vessels and create safe zones. Description: mines can be laid in many ways: by purpose-built mine layers, refitted ships, submarines, or aircraft, and even by dropping them into a harbor by hand. They can be inexpensive. Some variants can cost as little as $2,000, though more sophisticated mines can cost millions of dollars, be equipped with several kinds of sensors, and deliver a warhead by rocket or torpedo. The flexibility and cost-effectiveness make mines attractive to the less powerful belligerent in asymmetric warfare. The cost of producing and laying the mine is usually anywhere from 0.5% to 10% of the cost of removing it, and it can take up to 200 times as long to clear a minefield as to lay it. Parts of some World War II naval minefields still exist because they are too extensive and expensive to clear. It is possible for some of these 1940s-era mines to remain dangerous for many years to come. Mines have been employed as offensive or defensive weapons in rivers, lakes, estuaries, seas, and oceans, but they can also be used as tools of psychological warfare. Offensive mines are placed in enemy waters, outside harbors and across important shipping routes with the aim of sinking both merchant and military vessels. Defensive minefields safeguard key stretches of coast from enemy ships and submarines, forcing them into more easily defended areas, or keeping them away from sensitive ones. Minefields designed for psychological effect are usually placed on trade routes and are used to stop shipping from reaching an enemy nation. They are often spread thinly to create an impression of minefields existing across large areas. A single mine inserted strategically on a shipping route can stop maritime movements for days while the entire area is swept. International law requires nations to declare when they mine an area in order to make it easier for civil shipping to avoid the mines. The warnings do not have to be specific. For example, during World War II, Britain declared simply that it had mined the English Channel, North Sea, and French coast. History. Early used naval mines were first invented by Han Chinese innovators of the Ming Dynasty Imperial China and were described in thorough detail by the early Ming Dynasty Han Chinese artillery officer Zhao Yu, in his 14th-century military treatise known as the Huolongjing. Han Chinese records tell of naval explosives in the 16th century used to fight against Japanese pirates. This kind of naval mine was loaded in a wooden box, sealed with putty. General Qi Jiguang made several timed, drifting explosives to harass Japanese pirate ships. However, in the Tiangong Kaiwu treatise, written by Song Yingxing in 1637 AD, it describes naval mines with a ripcord pulled by hidden ambushes located on the nearby shore who rotated a steel wheel-lock flint mechanism to produce sparks and ignite the fuse of the naval mine. Although this is the rotating steel wheel-lock's first use with naval mines, Zhao Yu had described their use for land mines back in the 14th century. The first plan for a sea mine in the West was by Ralph Rabbits, who presented his design to Queen Elizabeth I of England in 1574. The Dutch inventor Cornelius Drebbel was employed in the Office of Ordnance by King Charles I of England to make weapons, including a floating petard, which proved a failure. Weapons of this type were apparently tried by the English at the Siege of La Rochelle in 1627. American David Bushnell developed the first American naval mine for use against the British in the American War of Independence. It was a watertight keg filled with gunpowder that was floated toward the enemy, detonated by a sparking mechanism if it struck a ship. It was used on the Delaware River as a drift mine. 19th century. In 1812, Russian engineer Pavel Shigling exploded an underwater mine using an electrical circuit. In 1854, during the unsuccessful attempt of the Anglo-French fleet to seize the Kronstadt fortress, British steamships HMS Merlin, HMS Vulture and HMS Firefly suffered damage due to the underwater explosions of Russian naval mines. Russian naval specialists set more than 1,500 naval mines, or infernal machines, designed by Moritz von Jacobi and by Emmanuel Nobel, in the Gulf of Finland during the Crimean War of 1853 to 1856. The mining of Vulcan led to the world's first minesweeping operation. During the next 72 hours, 33 mines were swept. The American Civil War of 1861 to 1865 also saw the successful use of mines. The first ship sunk by a mine, Huskyro, founded in 1862 in the Yazoo River. Rear Admiral David Farragut's famous, apocryphal command during the Battle of Mobile Bay in 1864, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead," refers to a minefield laid at Mobile, Alabama. In the 19th century, mines were called torpedoes, a name probably conferred by Dennis Fletcher after the torpedo fish, which gives powerful electric shocks. A spar torpedo was a mine attached to a long pole and detonated when the ship carrying it rammed another one and withdrew a safe distance. The submarine H.L. Hunley used one to sink Housatonic on the 17th of February 1864. A Harvey torpedo was a type of floating mine towed alongside a ship, and was briefly in service in the Royal Navy in the 1870s. Other torpedoes were attached to ships that propelled themselves. One such weapon, called the Whitehead torpedo after its inventor, caused the word torpedo to apply to self-propelled underwater missiles as well as to static devices. These mobile devices were also known as fish torpedoes. After 1865, the United States adopted the mine as its primary weapon for coastal defense. In the decade following 1868, Major Henry Larcom Abbott carried out a lengthy set of experiments to design and test moored mines that could be exploded on contact to be detonated, as well as enemy shipping passed near them. This initial development of mines in the United States took place under the purview of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which trained officers and men in the use of the Engineer School of Application at Willets Point, New York. The Imperial Russian Navy, a pioneer in mine warfare, successfully deployed mines against the Ottoman Navy during both the Crimean War and the Russo-Turkish War. During the Battle of Tamsui, in the Keelung Campaign of the Sino-French War, Chinese forces in Taiwan under Lu Mingxuan took measures to reinforce Tamsui against the French. They planted 9 torpedo mines in the river and blocked the entrance. Early 20th century. During the Boxer Rebellion, Imperial Chinese forces deployed a command-detonated minefield at the mouth of the Piho River before the Dagu forts, to prevent the Western Allied forces from sending ships to attack. The next major use of mines was during the Russo-Japanese War of 1904–1905. They proved their worth as weapons in this conflict. For instance, 2 mines blew up when the Petropavlovsk struck them near Port Arthur, sending the whole vessel to the bottom and killing the fleet commander, Admiral Stepan Makarov, and most of his crew in the process. The toll inflicted by mines was not confined to the Russians, however. The Japanese Navy lost 2 battleships, 4 cruisers, 2 destroyers and a torpedo boat to offensively laid mines during the war. Most famously, on May 15, 1904, the Russian mine-layer hammer planted a 50-mine minefield off Port Arthur and succeeded in sinking the Japanese battleships Atsusa and Yashima. Following the end of the Russo-Japanese War, several nations attempted to have mines banned as weapons of war at the Hague Peace Conference. Many early mines were fragile and dangerous to handle, as they contained glass containers filled with nitroglycerin or mechanical devices that activated a blast upon tipping. Several mine-laying ships were destroyed when the cargo exploded. Beginning around the start of the 20th century, submarine mines played a major role in the defense of U.S. harbors against enemy attack as part of the Endicott and Taft programs. The mines employed were controlled mines, anchored to the bottoms of the harbors and detonated under control from large mine casemates on shore. During World War I, mines were used extensively to defend coasts, coastal shipping, ports and naval bases around the globe. The Germans laid mines in shipping lanes to sink merchant and naval vessels serving Britain. The Allies targeted the German U-boats in the Strait of Dover and the Hebrides. In an attempt to seal up the northern exits of the North Sea, the Allies developed the North Sea Mine Barrage. During a period of 5 months from June 1918, almost 70,000 mines were laid spanning the North Sea's northern exits. The total number of mines laid in the North Sea, the British East Coast, Straits of Dover, and Heligoland Bight is estimated at 190,000, and the total number during the whole of World War I was 235,000 sea mines. Clearing the barrage after the war took 82 ships and 5 months, working around the clock. World War II. During World War II, the U-boat fleet, which dominated much of the Battle of the Atlantic, was small at the beginning of the war, and much of the early action by German forces involved mining convoy routes and ports around Britain. German submarines also operated in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Caribbean Sea, and along the U.S. coast. Initially, contact mines, requiring a ship physically strike a mine to detonate it, were employed, usually tethered at the end of a cable just below the surface of the water. Contact mines usually blew a hole in ships' hulls. By the beginning of World War II, most nations had developed mines that could be dropped from aircraft and floated on the surface, making it possible to lay them in enemy harbors. The use of dredging and nets was effective against this type of mine, but this consumed valuable time and resources, and required harbors to be closed. Later, some ships survived mine blasts, limping into port with buckled plates and broken backs. This appeared to be due to a new type of mine, detecting ships by the proximity to the mine and detonating at a distance, causing damage with the shock wave of the explosion. Ships that had successfully run the gauntlet of the Atlantic crossing were sometimes destroyed entering freshly cleared British harbors. More shipping was being lost than could be replaced, and Churchill ordered the intact recovery of one of these new mines to be of the highest priority. The British experienced a stroke of luck in November 1939 when a German mine was dropped from an aircraft onto the mudflats off Shoeburyness during low tide. Additionally, the land belonged to the army and a base with men and workshops was at hand. Experts were dispatched from HMS Vernon to investigate the mine. They had some idea that the mines could use magnetic sensors, so everyone removed all metal, including the buttons, and made tools of non-magnetic brass. They disarmed the mine and rushed it to labs at HMS Vernon, where scientists discovered a new type of arming mechanism. A large ferrous object passing through the Earth's magnetic field will concentrate the field through it. The mine's detector was designed to trigger as a ship passed over, when its magnetic field was concentrated as measured by the mine. The mechanism had an adjustable sensitivity, calibrated in milligauss. The U.S. began adding delay counters to the magnetic mines in June 1945. For this data, methods were developed to clear the mines. Early methods included the use of large electromagnets dragged behind ships below low-flying aircraft. Both of these methods had the disadvantage of sweeping only a small strip. A better solution was found in the double L-sweep, using electrical cables dragged behind ships that passed large pulses of current through the seawater. This induced a large magnetic field and swept the entire area between the two ships. The older methods continued to be used in smaller areas. The Suez Canal continued to be swept by aircraft. For instance, wartime Japanese sweep methods, by contrast, never advanced much past 1930s standards, and failed entirely to keep up with new American mines, clearing no more than 15% of all the mines laid in Japan's coastal waters. Moreover, IJN's mine-sweeping force was far too small, with 350 ships and 20,000 men. While these methods were useful for clearing mines from a local port, they were of little or no use for enemy-controlled areas. These were typically visited by warships, and the majority of the fleet then underwent a massive degaussing process, where the hulls had a slight south bias induced into them which offset the concentration effect almost to zero. Initially, major warships and large troop ships had a copper degaussing coil fitted around the perimeter of the hull, energized by the ship's electrical system whenever in suspected magnetic mined waters. Some of the first to be so fitted were the carrier HMS Ark Royal and the liners RMS Queen Mary and RMS Queen Elizabeth. This was felt to be impracticable for the myriad of smaller warships and merchant vessels, mainly because the ships lacked the generating capacity to energize such a coil. It was found that wiping a current-carrying cable up and down a ship's hull temporarily cancelled the ship's magnetic signature sufficiently to nullify the threat. This started in late 1939, and by 1940 merchant vessels and the smaller British warships were largely immune for a few months at a time until they once again built up a field. Many of the boats that sailed to Dunkirk were degaussed in a marathon 4-day effort by degaussing stations. The Allies deployed acoustic mines, against which even wooden-hulled ships remained vulnerable. Japan developed sonic generators to sweep these. The gear was not ready by war's end. The primary method Japan used was small air-delivered bombs. This was profligate and ineffectual, used against acoustic mines at Penang. 200 bombs were needed to detonate just 13 mines. The Germans had also developed a pressure-activated mine and planned to deploy it as well, but they saved it for later use when it became clear the British had defeated the magnetic system. The U.S. also deployed these, adding counters which would allow a variable number of ships to pass unharmed before detonating. This made them a great deal harder to sweep. Japan's antiquated sweep methods, lifting mines in nets, accidentally proved useful against these mines. It remained too slow and hazardous to be truly effective, especially in light of the high numbers being laid. Mining campaigns could have devastating consequences. The U.S. effort against Japan, for instance, closed major ports, such as Hiroshima, for days, and by the end of the Pacific War had cut the amount of freight passing through Kobe, Yokohama by 90%. When the war ended, more than 25,000 U.S.-laid mines were still in place, and the Navy proved unable to sweep them all, limiting efforts to critical areas. After sweeping for almost a year, in May 1946, the Navy abandoned the effort with 13,000 mines still unswept. Over the next 30 years, more than 500 minesweepers were damaged or sunk clearing them. Cold War era. Since World War II, mines have damaged 14 United States Navy ships, whereas air and missile attacks have damaged 4. During the Korean War, mines laid by North Korean forces caused 70% of the casualties suffered by U.S. naval vessels and caused 4 sinkings. During the Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, the belligerents mined several areas of the Persian Gulf and nearby waters. On April 14, 1988, a Samuel B. Roberts struck an Iranian MO-839 mine in the central Persian Gulf shipping lane, wounding 10 sailors. In the summer of 1984, magnetic sea mines damaged at least 19 ships in the Red Sea. The U.S. concluded Libya was probably responsible for the mine-laying. In response, the U.S., Britain, France, and 3 other nations launched Operation Intense Look, a minesweeping operation in the Red Sea involving more than 46 ships. On the orders of the Reagan administration, the CIA mined Nicaragua's Sandino port in 1984 in support of the Contra guerrilla group. A Soviet tanker was among the ships damaged by these mines. In 1986, in the case of Nicaragua v. United States, the International Court of Justice ruled that this mining was a violation of international law. During the Gulf War, Iraqi naval mines severely damaged Princeton and Tripoli. When the war concluded, 8 countries conducted clearance operations.